Dr. Jonathan Arbel is William Alfred Rose Professor of Law and Director of the AI Legal Studies Initiative at the University of Alabama Law School. Professor Arbel earned his doctoral degree in law and economics from Harvard Law School. Before joining the University of Alabama Law faculty, Professor Arbel was a postdoctoral fellow in private law at Harvard Law School and a visiting assistant professor of law at Villanova University. Professor Arbel served as clerk at the Supreme Court of Israel and a research fellow at the Israeli Democracy Institute. In addition to being a productive legal scholar in the areas of commercial, consumer, and private law, Dr. Arbel has been a key leader in the scholarly discussion of AI and law in the United States through his AI Legal Studies Initiative and a series of stimulating articles considering how AI may be regulated, existential risk, how AI may be used to interpret laws or used to interpret human reasonableness, and most recently, the sticky question of how to count something like AI with no body and no clear means of individuation. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Jonathan Arbel.
What is the legal status of AI agents? And as we think about this question, what about human agents? So thank you for this introduction. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. It is a true pleasure. I'm excited to be here. As a student of artificial intelligence, it is incredibly important, and I find great inspiration in thinking about human wisdom as opposed to artificial intelligence. So I thank you all for the opportunity. So I'm going to try to keep it light legally and maybe ask some deeper questions about the law and the structure of AI agents. But I do want to start with an old English case. It comes to us from 130 years ago, where a pub owner, we have this fellow, his name is Humble, and he's not a very good business owner. He runs his pub, but he's not a very effective manager, so the pub gets bought out. But the pub still retains his name at the entrance, and we have here a fake illustration. This is not an actual image. But every visitor to the pub sees the name of the previous owner, Humble, on it. But there is a new owner, and the new owner knows who he has business with. He knows that Humble can do a lot of things. He can run the business well, but in terms of attending to clients, but not run the financial side. And so he gives him very strict instructions. He says, well, Humble, listen, you are not allowed to buy anything for the business. I only give you the permission to buy beer and water, nothing else. Humble does not find it very persuasive. And he deals with suppliers, and one of them is a cigar seller. And he says to him, well, I want to buy cigars, and I want to buy them on credit. So the cigar seller assumes he's dealing with the owner of the business, provides cigars, and when it's time to collect, Humble is unwilling to pay, and the cigar seller goes to the business owner and say, well, you pay me. The owner says, well, I don't have to pay you because I've never given any permission to Humble, who's just my agent, to go and do business with you. If you have any claim, you can go after Humble and ask for money, but Humble is never going to pay you. So the case comes to the court, and the court has to decide what is the relationship between the owner of the business, what we might call today the principal, the manager of the business, the agent, and the creditor, the cigar seller. And the court decides that the business owner does indeed owe for the cigars. And it is hard to explain, and this decision has came under fire in various jurisdictions. In Canada, it has been overturned. Here, we don't follow it anymore. But in England, it's still powerful. Because people have asked, well, why do you hold the business owner responsible for the excess of the agent? The business owner has never authorized this transaction. Well, and the answer is, well, maybe it is something in the apparent authority of the agent. A person deals with a business and they assume that there is something behind that. But even that logic has not persuaded many commentators, because There was no apparent authority. The Humble's name was still on the business. But the court felt a need to protect the seller of the cigars, the creditor, from against the excess of the agent. So this case, which does not represent good law here in the United States, does show us some very basic questions about agency law and what we have to think about when we think about agency. We first, and just to make some very trivial observations, but they're going to be important as we think about AI, they show us that sometimes you want to have agents working on your behalf, like Humble, who can do things. Maybe they can do certain things better than us. For example, serving beer here, maybe the owner is not very chatty, not very client-friendly, and that's a skill that Humble might have had. And second, Humble might have had a lot of time on his hands, and the business owner, who's a very busy person, did not have. So having an agent work for you serves deep functions. The agent has a comparative advantage. Maybe they have more time than you. And they also have some absolute advantage. There are certain things they can do better than you. Agency is a very powerful tool in the world, and people find it very useful to have agents all the time. At the same time, agents may overstep their authority. They may create liability for the principal, for the owner, in ways not anticipated or wanted by the principal. And when that happens, we have a conflict between the interests of the public, the people who interact with the business, and the principal, the owner, who has a very sensible claim to say, I've not authorized the transaction, why should I be liable to a third party? These are the tensions that we will think about. Agency, if we take sort of a big look at the field, is divided between the principal, the agent, and the third party. And the question is how to allocate authority and responsibility. And AI agents adds to this very basic framework three deep, hard questions. What is an agent? What is really, truly, when we think about people working on our behalf, other people, other humans, what constitutes an agent, and whether something that is non-human, can that become an agent? Who is an agent? How do you define who becomes an agent and who's not? And specifically how to do all of that when we have AI agents. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about what AI agents are. But first, I just want to highlight, give you a sense, a very sort of crash course into agency law on how we divide authority today. When you are dealing with a business, when you're dealing with a corporation, the corporation has many agents, employees, who work on the corporation's behalf. When they have actual authority, when the employer says to the Walmart employee, go sell things on our behalf, you're dealing with a Walmart employee, you're buying things from the corporation through an agent. The agent has actual authority, and every action they take goes back to the Walmart Corporation. Sometimes agents act in ways that exceed their scope of authority, but they appear to be well within their authority. So you might not know that the Walmart salesperson is not authorized to sell you gift cards, for example, but you don't know that. You go to the store, you receive service. Because the agent has apparent authority, because the owner of the manager of Walmart could control their actions, we hold Walmart responsible even for certain actions that might be in excess of the agent's responsibility. And then there are some times when we will say, and this is important, that an agent acts on their own behalf. The principal is not responsible for the agent's action. And we see it sometimes, you will have a corporate employee goes out and commits some crime, not on behalf of the corporation, just people being human. And in cases of very clear access, we will not hold the principal of the corporation liable for the actions, the wanton actions of an agent? I'm seeding all of this discussion for questions about when do we want to hold AI agents liable, and when do we want to hold the the people who use AI agents liable. I'll skip this. How does the law even think about things that are not human? Can something that's not a human be an agent? The answer is yes. There are instances where we will say, for example, a corporation is not a human. The United States of America is not a person, but it can act in legally recognized ways and create legal liabilities and rights with others. You can buy from any corporation. You can sue a corporation. They can get sued. A different question is about the status of software. Can software ever be held responsible on its own as separate from the person who uses the software? And the answer here is no, there is no separate liability. The law generally treats software as an extension of the self, as an instrumentality, a tool we use, the way we use a hammer. And therefore, if our hammer harms another person, we are responsible for that. We are responsible for the tools. We see no distinction between the person and their extension, their tools. And for the most part, this is how the law views software. So we go, for example, we have software that there are cases where people will send bots to go online and scrape websites. And we say when those bots act in reckless ways, it's the responsibility of the person who created the software. If Microsoft Word creates harm to someone, then it might be the responsibility of Microsoft for all of those harms. And we see it as a fairly sort of intuitive way because we think, well, tools are just the extension of a person. There is no independent action. A hammer never goes out to the store and harms a person. It's always you who you might have left the hammer standing outside. So all of that would sort of counsel, and I think many people have taken that to mean, oh, we can just use the old frameworks and extend them to AI agents. Just say, well, you know, an AI agent is just another software algorithm, tool, hammer. And so every time an agent does something, that goes back to the individual. But AI agents actually raise deep questions. Just sort of show of hands, just so I have a sense, has anyone here used an AI agent? Oh, wow, that's fantastic. Okay, so most of us, when we interact with AI today, we do it through a chat box. We go in and we ask a question, and then we get an answer, and this is where it ends. And that's it. The answer is good or bad. Maybe you want to ask a follow-up question. Maybe you want to try something the AI recommended to you and then see it doesn't work and go back with the follow-up questions. Agents are different. With an AI agent, you give a task to the AI. The AI comes up with a plan on how to accomplish the task. For example, book a table for me at this restaurant. Well, how do I do that? Well, I have to search the address of the restaurant to see if it has a website, try to go on the website, oh, the website doesn't work, come up with a different plan, and they iterate, they come up with a plan, and they execute the plan. And for many tasks, what we tell them to do and exactly how the agent goes out and accomplishes that, that's a very sort of sensible, you know, you go and open table and you reserve a table. But there are certain tasks that are complex, and we are starting to assign AI agents with tasks that are very complex that we don't actually know how the AI agent will go out and accomplish them. And here's the critical point. AI agents are not standard tools. With a standard tool, you sort of know how it works and you employ it. It is determined how it will work. And sometimes tools act in unexpected ways, but those are unexpected ways of which we are aware. We can sometimes anticipate, oh, the saw might break and might splinter. With AI agents, we don't actually know, just like the pub owner, exactly how they will accomplish all of their tasks, and sometimes they will act in ways that we did not anticipate or authorize. We've just learned yesterday that a new AI system can find ways to hack almost every known operating system. Every browser you use, these AI systems know how to hack. And part of this analysis of this new very powerful system, one of the developers assigned it with a task and said, go do something for me. And they go out and they sit in the park on a bench and they have their lunch. They get an email. And they check their email and they see they get an email from the AI. And they think, well, how could the AI send me an email? I never connected it to an email box. Well, the AI figured out a way, the agent figured out a way how to connect to the internet, how to connect to, and realized that to accomplish the goal, it'll be advantageous to send out an email to the developer. This is truly unexpected and could be quite dangerous when the system decides that it has to hack its way into, like, I need to reach here, this conference on time, AI agent help me, and maybe it hacks the traffic lights on the way. It could be quite dangerous, and people might get harmed. What is my responsibility for the actions of an agent whose plans I do not fully understand? We might have the instinct of saying, well, you know, every time you use an agent, you have responsibility for every action he takes, no matter how unexpected. This may be an answer we'll have to give. But when we have dealt with humans, we have decided there is a line where sometimes we will say the human is no longer responsible because it was so difficult to anticipate what the agent will do. And if we will say you're responsible for whatever consequence of AI agents, that means that we will have to babysit all of our agents, and there will be very little point in making sure that all of our humble, the pub owner, they always act in the exact ways that we have designated for them. So it's a brave new world where software, a tool, acts in ways that are sometimes even smarter than us in a very narrow sense, not wiser than us, but more intelligent in the sense of being able to accomplish specific tasks. It's hard for us to know. So what can we do about all of that? And with that, I conclude, right? Because I'm close to time? Yeah, all right. All right. So how might we deal with this problem? Oh, I should add one more, just because this is a deeply informed theological audience. There is another question we're facing with AI agents, which is, how do you draw the line around one agent and say, this is agent 1, this is agent 2, this is agent 3? When we have human agents, we have this very convenient line marking thing called the corpus, the body. And we can say, well, this is one agent, this is another agent. With AI agents, we don't have this privilege because these are processes that they interact with the cloud, and the agent is what we call, probably, it's hard philosophically to even define an agent, but maybe the thing that continues between various calls back and forth to the cloud. With humans, we have memory, so we can say, I am the same person I was yesterday because I have the same memories and I have the same body. With an AI agent, we can have agents who share the same memory, and then where is the boundary between one agent and another? And then, of course, we have some similar questions sometimes about humans, right? When I go to sleep, I don't always remember everything that happened to me during my sleep. Do I exist between being awake and being asleep? You have the privilege, we have the privilege of having the scriptures tell us, yes, we're the same person, same being, but people who don't follow these traditions do have like actual hard questions about whether this is the same person who persists. And now we have questions about AI agents. So we have questions of identity about agents that are new, truly new. And we have questions about tools that are truly autonomous. These are novel questions. How are we going to deal with them? So we're starting to think about these questions. We don't have perfect answers. In a recent paper, we proposed, how about letting agents have their own corporations? The A Corp, an algorithmic corporation. And if you have a corporation, what you get is something you can draw a line around. You can say there is property that belongs to the corporation. To many, this is troubling. The notion that we will give rights to, if we give agents a corporation, it means that they can sue people. They can get sued, they have rights maybe, and this might be troubling to us because they lack the divine spark, and you might think that only a human can wield rights. So we make no metaphysical claim about what agents actually are, but in terms of convenience and practicality, it will be wise, we think, to let agents be defined around corporations, around property ownership, and then when they misbehave, we can take some of their assets and give it to their victims. So this might be one solution. But it's not the only solution. And if you're at all interested, you might want to check out the paper. And I'll stop here for now, hoping to inspire more questions than answers. Thank you.
Professor and Dr. Andrew